Hi, everyone. Just started. Okay. All right. A little early, but there's quite a few of you already. 68 of you. I'm well, Pablo. Thank you. I just saw a question from Sander, 1981. Why gold dropped so much in Japan from 1980? Well, gold dropped all over the world from 1980. It got up to almost $900. It dropped all the way to $250 back in 2001. In yen, it dropped from 200,000, I think, to around 50,000. But now we're back to almost 200,000. So it was not just in Japan that it dropped. So throughout the world, it dropped from the top in 1980. I heard one of you. Hi, everyone. Hi, No. Hi, Tony. Hi, Pablo. Hi, Damien. Hi, The Watcher. Hi, Ben. I think it was Ben Gray is here. Mikhail Kalashnikov. He's here from Izvesk. Peter from the UK. Rumpelstiltskin from Japan. The title of the video today is about the reset, of course. And I think a reset also means a correction. I think the world has become too financialized in the last 40 to 30 years. Ever since interest rates topped in 1981, we've seen interest rates go down, especially in the West, to zero or even negative. And I think it's all been manipulated, of course, a lot of it. And what that does is that it creates a huge incentive to borrow. So borrow and buy also paper assets. And the way to borrow as well, people have done, is through the bond market. And as interest rates keep falling, those prices keep going up. Lower interest rates also put a rocket up behind paper prices, financial assets. And I think we are, that's gone too far. Nothing ever lasts forever. And I think the reset is set to accelerate quite a bit. And I think we're right in the beginning of it. And what that will mean is higher prices for things that you can touch, tangible goods, commodities in general, precious metals, of course, as well. But anything that you can hold, anything that's hard to come by, even services like teaching or healthcare, that's what it's going to mean, in my opinion. Mr. B, hi, Mr. B. Yeah, Billy's here. Hey, Billy, say hello. Tomorrow, by the way, is Billy's birthday, 6th of July. He's going to be 12. Tony, hookers, I don't know about what will happen to the price of, it will probably go up. Ronald Darrow, hi, Ronald. Glenn Budgel from Newfoundland in Canada. Capital liquidation. I think the reset has been hitting Main Street for decades, but I think right now Main Street has, well, it's been shut for quite a while. It's reopened. I think people are going to have a hard awakening in the next month or two. I think a lot of people who think they're going to get their jobs back and have been given support by the government, that's going to change. So, yeah, I think it's going to get harder and harder. I think the central banks, even though the Fed has, how can I say, they've shrunk their balance sheet by about 150 billion, I think, in the last 3 weeks. I think things are still getting worse monetarily. They're going to keep printing. They're going to pick up again. This is just a pause. M2 is growing quite markedly. I think $3 trillion M3 has grown. M2, sorry, has grown in the U.S. Since February. So grow mechanic. Oh, hydro mechanic. What happened to Billy's kangaroo? I think he's over here on this side. It's not really Billy's kangaroo because he can't play with it, or else he'd like destroy that. He likes to chew toys, so I don't let him near the kangaroos, and he's well behaved. Eugene Murray from Colorado. Uh, uns- Unspoken Scott was on Twitter and Gold Money commentator. Is that Alistair McLeod? I think. Yeah, big bank will collapse by the end of the month. He could be right. Andrew Bennett, gold may well go above 1800 this week after U.S. sent two air. Yeah, I saw the story about the U.S. aircraft carriers in the South China Sea. Um, I mean that sounds funny. I mean, if the Chinese sent aircraft carriers to the Gulf of Mexico, I don't think the Americans would be very happy. Oh, Goose Kagan, do you recommend silver if 19 is broken? I recommend silver at any price, really. Um, Silver is a way of getting out of the fiat currency system. We need to understand that the system is being brought down by design, by the powers that be. The crisis we're having this year, the health crisis, is just a cover. It's just a cover to do something that hasn't been done, I don't think, ever, because the world is on a fiat currency system, the whole world. In the past, you had countries like Germany in 1923, but that was only one country, or you had France in 1790, that was only one country, but never have we had the whole world so hooked on debt and fiat currency. So they needed to cover this with the health crisis. Uh, I think it's going to accelerate towards the end of the year into next year. And all it will mean is that, and we've seen already, the US dollar is the only fiat currency right now who hasn't made an all time high. The all time high, of course, was in 2011. But the other two that hadn't made an all time high until recently were the Swiss franc and the Chinese yuan, but those as well have. And I think it's only a matter of time. Once the dollar trades through 1920, which was the high in 2011, fireworks, things are going to get really interesting. And is it is there safety in other fiat currencies? Should I get out of dollars and go into euros? No, they're all going to sink. They sink at different rates, but they will sink to the bottom, and that will be the hyperinflation. They might be able to keep interest rates low, and they might be able to keep some prices of some things low. But I think all the basic necessities of life, food, shelter, uh, everything is going to get more expensive, and it's going to take a while. But the fact that all these currencies are sinking versus gold is a bad sign, in my opinion. But that's the way they're going to rebalance things. Do you really think that the very wealthy people are going to keep buying bonds that are never going to be paid off uh, at the same purchasing power? Yeah, I know that the U.S. can print, as Greenspan said, we can always print the bonds and pay them back, but it's going to be in dollars or pounds or euros that are going to pay a lot less. So that's all the reset will do. It's going to make sure that people who have the wealth are not really shortchanged. And that's why I know we're not billionaires here on this live stream and on this channel, but we can at least protect ourselves. And it's hard because um, yeah, you need to make sure you keep an income, so you don't have to get rid of your protection, your financial insurance, and it's really hard, but you need to try and do it. Uh, Pat is here. Charles Ortel on Cried Source the Truth condemned holding physical gold today on Jason Goodman's channel. I saw that their true colors no longer a fan. Yeah, I mean, anyone who says that is not a friend of freedom, because what gold gives you is and silver, it gives you financial freedom. If And I always think that I'd rather have financial and economic freedom over political freedom. Of course, it would be great to have all of it, but if you can't have one, you might as well have the other. So if you don't have political freedom, why are you going to keep financing that system that keeps you enslaved? That's why you need precious metals. And you only need to look back at people like Howard Buffett, Warren Buffett's dad, who said you can't have economic freedom without sound money or gold or silver. Even Alan Greenspan, and I know he's a turncoat, but he wrote in 1967 that gold and economic freedom go hand in hand, and that statists hate gold and sound money, right? Mad Max says, Homo contrarian views. Yeah, I am. I try to be. Unspoken Scott, how much silver will be enough? Well, it depends on individuals, what kind of life you lead. If you're like a playboy and you spend a lot of money, you go out, party, you're going to need a lot more silver than I do, because I'm not one of those. Maybe when I was younger, I used to do more of that. So, yeah, it all depends. If you have a big family, if you have people dependent on you, if you're single and you have a pretty good job, you might not need as much silver. Uh, Kapoor Vinny, where to buy GDX ETFs? Well, through your stockbroker. Uh, in the UK, they also list it in the UK in US dollars. In the US, through your stockbroker. What are your thoughts on DEFI replacing the current banking infrastructure Chinese checker? I haven't heard of DEFI, and we don't have a banking infrastructure, by the way, Chinese checker. Uh, we have casinos. They're not real banks in the old sense of the word, where they kept your money safe. I don't know what DeFi is, but maybe you can explain it to me. Sander 81, why is Buffett piling into bonds? Well, I don't think he's buying long-term bonds. He's buying treasuries, like 1 month and 3 month treasuries. I think it's because he doesn't like gold, and well, 3 month bills and 1 month bills, they're almost like cash, and yeah, that's why he's doing it. But I don't think he's buying longer term bonds, because they're more risky, interest rate risk. And he's got a lot of cash. And I think if he went and bought 50 billion worth of physical gold, he'd have the US Treasury onto him. And I think he's part of the club, so to speak. Oliver, I do follow him once in a while. I think, yeah, I subscribe to the Market Sniper. Yeah, he's. I like listening to him. Haven't listened to him recently. Yeah, I think unfortunately a lot of the middle-aged people who have saved quite a bit, let's say over 50 or even over 60, who have quite a bit of savings. In the UK, at least, I think a lot of these people keep it in the bank. They keep it in ISAs, and very few think of having precious metals. And I think they're going to get hurt. People holding large balances of paper money everywhere around the world will get hurt in the next 18 months. They've already been getting hurt since the year 2000. Full of hope. Thank you for your super chat. If China Three Gorge Dam fails, 400 million will die. All right. Is there a problem there right now? I haven't seen. Maybe there's a headline. Graham Hobbs. Hi, Graham. Nice as he is, Buffett is definitely part of the club through his father's connections initially. That's right. His father was a congressman from Nebraska, but I don't think his father probably would really appreciate the way his son thinks right now. So, or I don't know. I can't really judge that, but I would say he wouldn't agree with Warren Jr. or Buffett Jr. Of his views on gold. I think maybe Buffett, the reason he talks about gold like that is not because he doesn't think it's something good to have for your freedom. He talks about it more because he wants to prove that investing in stocks is better than gold. So who knows? Maybe Warren Buffett does believe in what his dad used to tell him. I've got a few super chats. Peter Richard, thank you. Is sterling silverware as good as buying silver coins, especially if you bought below? Yeah, Peter, of course, silverware is. You just have to make sure that it is pure sterling silver, the silverware. There's a lot of times you think it's silver, but it's only plated, electroplated. So just be careful. Of course, it is just as good. You can eventually sell that for scrap, and for scrap, I don't mean it's a bad thing, but a dealer will give you the price of silver for it. Paul England, thank you for the super chat. Thank you. Silver retard. Do you think they made gold tier 1 asset last year because they knew this was coming? Probably, but all it means is that gold can still, for example, the price of gold will still fluctuate, but yeah, still banks can choose not to hold gold, but I think you're right. They made it a tier 1 asset. Maybe they know that they're gonna have to, because I've always thought the last few years, especially after 08, 09, when they actually threw a lot of debt into the system, and what they've done now this year is even more amazing in terms of amount of debt in the system. I already thought it was going to be really hard to pay off all the debt that we've accumulated, the whole world. So now it's even more impossible, and they will have to basically bring down the system. And I think gold will become important again, part of the system. Yeah, I know a lot of the central bankers, when they talk about gold, they poo-poo gold, but only because they're trying to get people to stay still in this paper system. They don't want you to they're not, Powell or Lagarde are not going to come out, oh, we're going to, gold is going to come back as a monetary asset next year. They can't say that. So they have to keep people in the dark. And why do I think I'm not in the dark and I know they're going to do this? Well, because I think I've learned about the monetary system, and it's not sustainable because it's a debt-based system. Sorry. Itchy nose. Harry Chu says gold is stalling out again. Way too manipulated. Yeah, maybe, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep it stalled. I'm not worried. I've been in gold since 2002. That's one thing I've told people in the last few weeks. You need patience. This is not a get-rich trade. This is a way, as an insurance against monetary mayhem, and we are getting monetary mayhem. You can't have a sound monetary system with what they're doing, the central bankers. It's not only the balance sheets that are increasing, it's also the money supply. Even in the US, money supply is going up. In the UK, it's going up. In the EU, everywhere. And that's going to translate into it's just a law of supply and demand. Chinese checker. DeFi is decentralized finance, which is using smart contracts for trustless lending. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with trustless and the blockchain and all that, but what's going to be behind it? More air. So yeah, but my focus on this channel is more about the money itself. I'm sure we have all the great technologies. A blockchain is a good technology, but if we stay in the fiat based system, a debt based system, you can have the best technology, but it's not really going to matter. You're still going to need gold and silver. That's just restructuring the infrastructure, if you know what I mean. Is not restructuring or resetting the whole system, the underlying anchor to the system. Uh, Actually, I think no, I don't think we are entering deglobalization. King K, Max, I think Max Kaiser is wrong. That's what they're trying to tell us is happening. That it's all going to be people are going, countries are going to be more insular. I don't think so. It seems like it is because of the health crisis and the how can I say the supply chains. But I think China is still going to be dominant. Yeah, still a lot of stuff made in China. We saw the U.S., Mexico, Canada, USMCA, I think it's called, just was put into effect, and that's just like a second phase of NAFTA. So actually, President Trump has not. He's made it even more globalized. It's just another step to making North America one political and economic place. So I think the globalists, their goal is still globalization, and they're the ones who are behind what's going on right now. You just have to Google World Economic Forum, Fourth Industrial Revolution. These are the Davos people. They're all part of the big corporations, the big banks, big media, big government. They're all in it together. Why do you think everything has been so orchestrated everywhere in the world? You look at pictures of politicians talking, and they all have these slogans that look very similar: stay at home or do this and that. It's almost like they have the same, same script. So no, I think Max Kaiser is wrong about that. I think that's what they want us to think. Yeah, maybe things will change a little bit, but I think globalization is still going to be around. I think that corporations are still very greedy, and it's the big multinationals that bring us globalization. It's not the Chinese that are forcing it up on us. Uh, so there you go. Uh, PSUEE5, thank you for the super chat. Were you working in the city during the '08 crash? Yeah, I was. I was actually. It was interesting. uh, it, Especially like the period around when Lehman collapsed. We could tell that it wasn't going to only be Lehman. And we were just sitting in front of the screens looking at the charts of all the big investment banks, all the banks, they're all crashing. And we could see it was all going to collapse. Yeah, it was quite interesting. But then they let Lehman collapse, but then they had to save because Morgan Stanley would have been the next one. Then Bank of America, Goldman would have gone, J.P. Morgan would have gone. So yeah, it was very interesting. I was there, and I stayed in the city till 2012. So I did benefit from, I guess, the bailout of the system. But I knew, I knew that, what they did at the time, and that it was going to be, it was going to hurt the general public, because the only way they were able to save the system is through creating all the debt that's on the back of the taxpayer. And why do they create that? Well, that's the only way that governments can save banks. They have to borrow the money. They borrow it from the banks themselves, which is really amazing. So we save bankrupt banks so that they can lend to us at interest. And that's why I wasn't really too fussed when I lost my job in the city. Of course, I tried to get another job there, but I didn't because of my age. I guess it was hard. It was the first time I was made redundant, mainly because they closed the desk I was working on. But I knew that this was not going to end well. And they've done it again. They're again bailed out the banks this year. Yeah, they've given the public some crumbs, but it's nothing compared to what the bankers got. So we've got almost 600 people. Yeah, I saw that, John Meyer. Someone said that Alistair McLeod thinks the same, thinks of a banking crisis around the corner. Abe Froman, no, I don't think. You see, the bankers, they always make sure that when they reset a new system, that your old mortgage gets reset as well. So beware of that. Thank you, Mr. B, for encouraging that. What will become of Iran and Lebanon? Well, I don't really follow those countries too closely. One thing I know about the Lebanon is that their central bank lost $49 billion, and the country's annual GDP is 52 billion. So it doesn't look good. The Lebanese pound is not a currency I'd want to hold. I'm sure the gold dealers in Beirut are quite busy. Yeah, Iran. I mean, I saw a guy last year on YouTube. He travels around the world, and he was in Iran. It's a nice place. The people are very nice. I used to know Iranians years ago, and they're very nice people. Thank you, John, for the super chat. Yeah, I'm gonna buy Billy some silver because it's his birthday tomorrow. Billy's 12. Uh, I've spoken about how we used to call my wife and I and my daughter. We called Billy the credit crunch puppy because we bought him in 2008 in the summer, right when the crisis was kicking off, and we had another Shih Tzu called Billy as well. Unfortunately, he passed away in the beginning of the year. He was 13 and a half. And and after a few months, we decided, well, my daughter and I decided we wanted another puppy. So I called the breeder, and he said, I have only got one Shih Tzu left. As he said, it's a boy. And I said, oh, really? And he said, he's got a name. And I said, what's his name? And he said, Billy No Mates, because he's the last one left. So, and at the time, he said, I really need to get rid of him because I can't cope anymore. I have other dogs, and they cost a lot of money, puppies. And he said, I'm willing to bring the price down from 500 to 250. Said, fine. So yeah, Billy was a bargain. So we kept the same name, Billy No Mate. So it's some one of my friend thinks I called him Billy just because the other one was Billy, but it wasn't. It was a coincidence. No, I think Billy was not born Billy during the Obama administration. He was born during the Bush administration. Bush was still president in '08. Yeah, the financial crisis happened under George W. Bush. Yeah, uh, Obama, I think, came to power in 2009, January 2009. Billy the Bullion Billionaire. Yeah. Phoenix FP40. I made a video about that. Bank of England and Venezuela's gold. Yeah, I think it's wrong. The High Court said that Maduro's government is not legitimate, even though the United Nations representative to the from Venezuela was sent there by the Maduro government. So the UN recognizes the current government of Maduro. So yeah, I think it's just outrageous. But the British High Court is now like a kangaroo court. Simon Bevan, blessings from New Zealand. Thank you, Simon. Ashish Gulati, long-time listener. Hi, Ashish. Six Sigma six. So what do we do? Buy a house on credit? I'm not sure. Is that the question in relationship to the title of the live stream? Well, I think w- right now is not the time to take any credit or to lend any money. So the old saying of never a borrower or lender be is more important than ever. You have to stick to tangibles. I think you need to try to pay off that. You need to stop. You need to get rid of national currencies. Of course, you still need some to function month to month for your expenses. But if you've been fortunate enough to be able to save, have some savings, I think you need to convert it to real things because we've had a huge inflation of the money supply in the last since '08, and it's gotten even worse this year with the crisis. They've taken it as an excuse to print even more money. The central banks, and it's just a simple law of supply and demand. They're creating a huge amount of unbacked currency, fiat currency, and gold and silver. They've been money for thousands of years. They can't be created out of thin air as easily as the bank of central bank currency. So it's normal that the central bank currency is going to lose value against everything else. It's not just gold and silver. And if you look at the chart of the Goldman Sachs commodity index, for example, versus the Dow, which represents paper assets, it's at a 100-year low or a 120-year low. So tangibles are vastly undervalued, and that's how it's going to reset. Tangibles, you can't keep going the way we are. Paper assets are not real, and they're too overvalued versus real things. I think that could help emerging market countries as well, places like Brazil, even Australia, with a lot of wealth and natural resources. So that's the other thing I would say about investing uh, geographically. King KY Yeet, I don't really give that kind of advice about yields for property. I'm not really involved in the buy to let stuff. All I would say, you need to make sure you count all the expenses that you can have, the depreciation, all the broken, if you have a tenant that doesn't take good care of your property, it's all going to cost you. And if you use a real estate agent, they're going to charge you as well. So be careful. Uh, Johnny OC, do you listen to music or have a record collection? Yeah, I have quite a yeah, I do like those Brazilian tunes, Jobim and Gilberto Gil. I also like Chico Buarque, but I like all kinds of music. Yeah, I have iTunes, so there you go. One that I like is what's it called again? Sons of Liberty. They sing about the Federal Reserve. That's an interesting one. But I like a lot of the '80s stuff because I guess I was a teenager and in my 20s in the '80s. So there you go. I I'm not really into hard rock and stuff like that, or heavy metal, or rap. No, I'm not. Even classical music is nice sometimes. Sergio Mendes, yeah, he's good. No death metal. No. I guess Sons of Liberty are a little bit like metal band, but they're quite. They actually talk about the system, which is quite interesting. Queen, my wife likes Queen, and my niece. I'm not really into Queen. Mateus Augusto. Yeah, I know that Chico Buarque is a socialist, but his music is good. I try not to think about the political. If you thought like that, yeah, doesn't mean to say that I agree with their views. Uh, I think yeah, they're trying to push us cashless. Um, yeah, they are. You can see here in the UK, a lot of shops are saying we only take card, but a lot of times you just give them cash and they can't argue. I don't think it's Sunak that's proposing those vouchers for £500. I think it's this foundation that's giving him the suggestion. We'll have to see if he's going to come up with that. Well, yeah, the reason they're doing vouchers is because they don't want people saving the money. They want you to spend it. So I guess what would happen is you take a voucher to a store, and I think they're going to make it so they're going to be. It's going to be conditional. You're only going to be able to use it at let's say food stores or clothes stores. I'm not sure you're going to be able to buy precious metals with it. And I guess the store will take that voucher and they'll get the money from the government because they need the money from the government because a voucher is no good to them. So I think they're doing that because they want people spending. They don't want people saving. I've even seen economists like mainstream in the Telegraph and FT saying that that's a really bad thing. It's the what they call I forgot the term, but they're saying that it's a bad thing for it's good for each individual to save, but not for the whole economy. The paradox of thrift. And I don't agree with that because you can only have prosperity if people save and invest. This paradox of thrift idea is just a rubbish Keynesian philosophy that thinks that only debt, you need debt to create wealth. And we know that that's not true. So, yeah, it's more it feels like a Soviet style system that people get vouchers and they go like good little sheep to use those vouchers. So there you go. We'll have to see if it is helicopter money, indirectly SW. You can't hoard the 500 pound. You can't hoard a voucher because I think it will have a term. You see, it will last for 3 months, and if you don't use it after 3 months, you can't use it anymore. You might be able to buy jewelry. That's right. Ernest Como, thank you for your super chat. Yeah, I guess you could give someone the voucher and they'll give you something for it. Yeah, you could go to your bullion dealer or your jeweler and say, do you want this 500 voucher? Let me have that sovereign, and you can have the voucher for you." I'm not sure if they're gonna put people's name on it. If it will be like a bearer instrument. It's just a proposal anyway. I don't think it's for sure yet. I think the Sunak is his name. He's gonna come out with some kind of budget this week. Well, Hans Farid says I'd be straight down to the weed dealer. I think I'd be down to the golf store, buy some new Titleist Pro V1s, maybe buy a 3-wood. I want a 3-wood. And maybe buy some, yeah, some more wine. Hans Ferry smokes 3 woods for breakfast. Farmland, my tinfoil hat. Yeah, I mean, farmland is always good to have, but it's not something I'm familiar with farming. But it holds its value. A lot of the wealthy European families they've had farmland and vineyards for hundreds of years. So if you can have farmland, and if you have, make sure you don't have to pay tax on it that much, it's a good thing. Billy the farm dog, yeah. Simon Bevan, yeah. No, my driver is quite. I'm quite accurate. But I bought new clubs last year, and the guy at the shop, he's a pro. He fitted me, and he said, "Oh, you don't need a 3-wood, just have a driver and a 5-wood." But I would like a 3-wood. Hans Ferry, did you also see? I think there's a video or a press conference from June 4th. An official from that organization said that it's rare that asymptomatic carriers of this disease infect other people. Yeah, and then I think a day or two after that, they backed down on that. But yeah, it's ridiculous. It defeats all the purpose of social distancing. China fake gold scandal. Yeah, I heard about that, Harry. Yeah, I think that's it's concerning, but it's a Chinese thing. It's not the first time. I think there was one a few years ago with the tungsten. You have to be very careful. That's why you need to go to a reputable dealer when you dealing, buying precious metals. Century socialist distancing. Yeah, that's a good one. Any social unrest in the UK? No, I mean they've had a few protests. These the same ones as in the states. Starts with a B, but no social unrest really that significant, at least. Ernest Como, thank you again. Can you discuss J.P. Morgan supplying silver to ETFs as it relates to their RICO charges? Uh, I know that there's a few executives from J.P. Morgan London that are under investigation for these RICO charges. I'm not sure how it's related to the ETFs. But we know JP Morgan has a lot of physical silver. But I'm sorry, I don't know how it relates to the ETF. Maybe they are double counting. They're using the silver that is supposed to be in storage for COMEX, and they're double counting that they could be double counting. That's what it is. So that the silver ETF has some silver, but I don't know. I haven't really looked into that. Uh, I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question definitively. Yeah, Miles, JP Morgan is probably the biggest shareholder in the New York Federal Reserve. Risky oh 06, other than precious metals and consumer staples, what other assets do you recommend for a depression? Um, well, like the other guy mentioned, or girl, uh, land is good if you have access some land. I guess you can grow your own food, but there's not too many assets. Don't do well in the depression, to be honest. At least not financial assets. But yeah, I think the best thing to have is like precious metals, like I said. I guess it's the time to buy undervalued assets for the long term. But if you're going to buy it, uh, it's going to take a long time for it to become productive, but it's going to be dirt cheap, unlike now, which they're still expensive. Yeah, I agree with you, Maiden Shy. Nothing will happen to JP Morgan. They did JP Morgan deal for the US government, so the US government is not going to punish its banker. Uh, King King K. Yeah, I did enjoy working in the financial sector. Yeah, I did. I guess as time went along, I found out more and more about money itself. But in the beginning, yeah, that's something I always wanted to do. Was not always, but when I finished university, I decided I wanted to get involved in the financial sector, and I enjoyed it. In the 90s, it was quite interesting because we still had real exchanges. So I worked a lot in the futures and options market. I was in the office, but I had colleagues on the floor. I knew all the hand signals, and then it switched to the screen, and that became like really impersonal. We used to know a lot of people from the floor, and in the 90s, it was particularly fun. And I guess I was younger then as well. Gene Sweetman, yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. GDXJ. Also, look at perspectives like Sprott Asset Management. Um, Look what they're putting their funds as well. That's what I do, but I don't have anyone in particular. Let's see here something about Greg Menerino with the Fed's evil grand plan to own the world. Yeah, I mean the Fed is the instrument of the globalists. And the globalists are they they were the ones who also transformed Russia into a communist country with the Bolshevik Revolution. So that they hate competition, so they want to own everything. So yeah, I agree with Greg Menerino, but that's why you need to have some. They're not gonna be able to own everything. Hopefully, we'll be able to buy some of the assets as well, not just them. Yeah, Kevin Johnson. I saw the headline that Kanye West is running for president. Why not? Yeah, that's the other thing about politics. I think that's a big distraction, and be it in the U.S., be it in the UK, I never get involved. Even though I thought in 2016 that things were going to be different. The way Trump campaigned, I thought, oh, this guy's for real, but I'm not convinced anymore. I'm not convinced. I think it's all kabuki theater. The bankers are in charge of everyone, unfortunately. Putin, I think they're all playing the same game. Yeah, he's all part of the establishment. There's very few out there, unfortunately. I don't trust any of them. Yeah, I think you just need to focus on your financial freedom. If you have a little bit of financial freedom, uh, yeah, you can try to make your life as good as possible. Even though right now it's a little bit, I think it's a little bit depressing sometimes that things are the way they are, not because of this crisis, but the way people have reacted to it, the way so many people are buying into it, even though there's a lot of people who are not. And that's the hope I have. Eventually, this will go away. When will the old world order lawyers, bankers be held accountable for their crimes upon humanity? I don't know who's going to prosecute them. They're all in it. I don't know. Henry Ford, you can have any color. Yeah, that's a good saying by Henry Ford. The other good saying by Henry Ford was that if the American people knew how the monetary system worked, there would be a revolution tomorrow. And that's why I think it's so important. That's why I focus on this subject. Because I think if people learn more about the monetary system, they will realize that politics is just a distraction, that we really need to go after, uh, yeah, not go after the bankers, but basically not play their game. And how do you not play their game? Well, you stop financing them. How do you finance them? Every time you hold a paper currency, every time you leave uh, a credit balance in the bank, every time you borrow from the bank, you're playing their game. So you need to get out of their game. How can you do that? Well, precious metals, tangible goods, even real estate. Real estate, yeah, if it's all paid for, it's yours. So it's not the bankers. They hate that. They hate you not having any debt. Do you think Nazara is real? Well, I've been hearing about that for almost 20 years. I don't think it is. It's just, I think they're just it's part of the game. It's like Q. They're just keeping people, waiting for it, waiting for it, and instead of trying to do something. It's just to keep them playing along, playing along. Nazara is like Q, I would say. Simon DeLuca, Iraqi dinar is backed by gold. Well, I didn't hear about that. I don't think it is. I don't think the Iraqi dinar is backed by gold. I don't think there's any fiat currency backed by gold right now. I read something interesting this morning about the 4th of July Declaration of Independence, and it was from Gary North. I think is from the Daily Reckoning. Uh, Gary North. And he said something interesting. He said that he's not celebrating the 4th of July. He's an American, and he said that before the the Revolutionary War that started in 1775, and the Declaration of Independence in 76, that the colonies only paid 1% of their income in tax to Britain. So he says we're paying a lot more tax now, so we're a lot less free. So there you go. That was an interesting thing he wrote about. Yeah, John Mayer. I have been. I used to read him quite a while ago. He used to contribute to the Mises.org website. He probably still does. And the other thing he said, the Boston Tea Party was actually the reason they threw the tea into the Boston Harbor was because the British actually lowered the price of tea coming from Britain to the colonies. And a lot of the people that were smuggling tea from non-British sources, their prices were too high, and that's why they threw all the tea into the harbor. So it wasn't because they taxed tea; it's because they lowered the price of tea. So a lot of the people who were smuggling tea, like John Hancock, apparently was a tea smuggler, and John Hancock signed was the first guy to sign the declaration. So it's an interesting. I don't know if it's true, but he's done his research. But I think it's quite interesting. And the other thing I would say is I went to the Bank of England Museum about 2 years ago, maybe a little less. And guess who owned shares in the Bank of England? Well, it was Mr. George Washington and his wife. Why did they own shares in the Bank of England? Well, because Martha Washington, her ex, she was a widow, and her husband, Custis, I think was his name. He was quite a wealthy guy, and he had shares in the Bank of England. So when he died, and when she married George Washington, he took possession of that. So there's even a piece of paper at the Bank of England showing how they used to pay dividends to George Washington and his wife. So there you go. Zucker Zucker tube, or in German is Zucker, which is sugar tube. Thank you for your super chat. Our Money Wars, The Example and Warning of American Finance, my book suggestion to you. Our Money Wars. Okay, thank you. It's nice to have people suggest books to me. Usually I'm suggesting books. Yeah, I never realized that John Hancock was a smuggler. All right, I'll take a couple of more questions. We've reached the hour mark. Tomorrow, I'm doing my video quite early because I'm going to play golf tomorrow morning at a different club. But so yeah, the video is going to come out early tomorrow, so I have to get up earlier. Not anymore, Paul Game. Back in '08, it would have. I think Shih Tzus are like 800 to 1,000 pounds now. So it was a good trade. Lily Robbins says grocery stores say government told them coins and small bills will be gone within the year. George Assad, will gold be up $100 tomorrow morning? Uh, Probably not. Thoughts on Dan Pena? I've seen him a few times, a few years ago on London Rio. To be honest, I don't like the guy. I think he's arrogant, and he called himself a $50 billion man, as if he had $50 billion. But then you find out that he worked for companies that were worth 50 billion. So, I mean, I worked for Citibank, I worked for ABN AMRO, and I don't call myself a $1 billion man. So no, I don't like that guy, Dan Pena. I, well, not that I don't like him, but I don't really rate what he says. I think it's even more important to have precious metals if the world goes cashless, because all that means is that the bankers are going to be even more irresponsible, because all there people will not have a safety valve. They won't even be able to go to the bank and take $5,000 or 5,000 pounds and keep that at home, because they're probably going to stop you taking it from the bank as well. So that's even more reason to have precious metals, in my opinion. All right. Thank you, everyone. Just one more here. Is the UK linked to the dollar, Mario? Yeah, every country is linked to the dollar. Um, all the fiat currencies. The dollar is at the center of the system. All right, everyone. Thank you. I wish you all a great rest of the weekend. For those of you out in Asia and Australasia, have a good Monday. Take care. Bye.